I didn't realize she was leaving. Not really. I noticed the small things first, the way her laughter faded quicker, the way she stopped arguing with me. She used to fight for us, for every misunderstanding, every careless word I threw her way. Then one day, she didn't. That should have scared me. But I mistook her silence for peace. Her name was Maya. She loved quietly, deeply, the kind of love that didn't demand attention but deserved it. She remembered my coffee order, my worst days, the stories I never finished telling. She stayed even when I didn't make it easy, especially then, and I took that love like it was permanent. We were sitting in the living room when it happened. The TV was on, volume low. My phone was in my hand, glowing brighter than her presence ever seemed to me anymore. Maya, I said distractedly, did you pay the electricity bill? She looked at me for a long second. Yes, she replied softly. That was it. No argument, no reminder, no frustration, just yes. She went to the bedroom after that. I didn't follow. The truth is, I had learned to love her absence more than her presence. Her patience filled the spaces where my effort should have been. Her forgiveness made my apologies unnecessary. Her staying taught me I didn't have to change. A week later, I came home to a quiet apartment. Not peaceful. Empty. Her shoes were gone. The photos were gone. Even the plant she loved was missing from the windowsill. Only one thing remained. A letter. It sat on the kitchen counter, folded neatly like she had always folded my clothes. I didn't open it right away, because something inside me already knew what it said. I finally sat down. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. I waited for you longer than I should have. I loved you louder than you listened. I'm not leaving because I don't love you. I'm leaving because I finally love myself. My chest tightened. There was no anger in her words. That hurt more than anything else. I read the letter again and again. Each time it sounded like goodbye, but also like freedom, just not mine. That night, I slept on her side of the bed. It still smelled like her shampoo. I reached for her without thinking. My hand found only cold sheets. That was the first time the fear settled in. The first time I wondered if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. The days after were quiet. No text asking where I was. No reminders. No forgiveness waiting to be used. Just silence. And for the first time, I had to sit with myself. With the man I had been while she was loving me. And the man I had never bothered to become. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I sent a message. Can we talk? Seen. No reply. That hurt more than if she had yelled, because it meant she was done waiting. I started noticing all the ways she had loved me. The lunches she packed, the alarms she set so I wouldn't oversleep, the way she defended me when I didn't deserve it, love I had treated like background noise. But it did. And standing alone in that apartment, surrounded by her absence, one truth finally hit me. I didn't lose her when she left. I lost her long before that. And now, I was the one left behind. The apartment had a sound now, not a noise, a presence. Silence wasn't empty anymore. It pressed against my ears, followed me from room to room, settled into my chest like something unfinished. I used to crave quiet after long days. Now it felt like punishment. I didn't turn on the TV. There was no one to ask what we should watch. I noticed the spaces she left behind. Not the obvious ones, the closet half empty, the missing mugs, the bare hooks by the door, but the small, cruel ones. No note reminding me to eat. No text asking if I got home safe. No soft sigh beside me when I stayed up too late. Maya had loved me in ways I never learned how to return. I found her scarf in the back of the drawer 3 days later. Soft, familiar. I pressed it to my face before I could stop myself. It smelled like her. And just like that, the weight in my chest broke open. I sat on the bedroom floor, scarf in my hands, realizing something terrifying. She wasn't coming back to remind me how to love. I had to figure it out alone. Work became harder. Not because I couldn't focus, but because I finally could. I noticed how often I checked my phone for a message that never came. how every vibration felt like hope and disappointment tangled together. I typed messages I never sent. I miss you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't see you. They lived and died in my notes app. I replayed our arguments in my head. Except now, I heard them differently. Her pauses weren't weakness. They were exhaustion. Her tears weren't manipulation. They were grief. And my silence? That was the loudest cruelty of all. One night I opened her letter again. This time, I read between the lines. She hadn't left suddenly. She had been leaving for months. In every conversation where I didn't listen, in every moment I chose comfort over effort, in every promise I assumed I didn't have to keep, she had been walking away slowly. I just hadn't bothered to follow. I went to the coffee shop we used to love. It was stupid. I knew that. But I needed to see something familiar. The barista smiled politely. Just you today? Just you. I nodded, my throat tight. I sat at our table, the one by the window, and watched couples pass by, hands intertwined, heads leaned together. Once that had been us. I had stopped noticing. I caught my reflection in the glass. I looked, unchanged, and that realization scared me, because Maya didn't leave because I was imperfect. She left because I was unwilling. That night, I finally did something different. I unplugged my phone, sat with my thoughts. No distractions, no escape. I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. Would I actually be better? Or would I just be afraid enough to pretend? The answer hurt. I started writing, not messages to her, to myself. Pages of ugly truths about how I avoided emotional work, how I confused love with convenience, how I only reacted when something was taken away. I didn't like the man on those pages, but for the first time, I saw him clearly. A week passed, then two. No word from her, and slowly, painfully, another truth settled in. She wasn't punishing me with silence. She was protecting herself. And maybe she was giving me the space to become someone worth missing. I stood by the window that night, watching the city glow. For the first time, I didn't wish she would come back. I wished I had been better when she was still here. But regret is a strange teacher. It doesn't shout. It waits. And when it finally speaks, you listen. Change didn't arrive like a promise. It came like discomfort, like sitting with feelings I used to drown in noise, like facing the mirror and not looking away, like doing things without expecting Janyan to notice. I used to think growth happened when someone watched. Now I knew better. I started small. I woke up earlier, made my bed, cooked meals instead of ordering takeout. Not because it impressed anyone, because it reminded me I was capable of care. Even if it was just for myself. I stopped telling myself she left because I wasn't enough. That lie was too easy. The truth was harder. I've been enough. I just hadn't been present. Therapy wasn't something I ever thought I'd do. But one quiet afternoon, I found myself sitting across from a stranger, explaining why I felt hollow only after I lost something good. You learned love is something that stays, she said gently. So you never learned how to tend it. That sentence stayed with me. I learned how often I avoided vulnerability by joking, how I mistook emotional distance for strength, how I loved in theory but feared it in practice. Maya had seen all of it. She just stopped carrying it for me. I stopped checking her social media, not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally understood. That healing wasn't about watching her life without me. It was about building one within myself. One evening, I ran into her friend at the grocery store. My heart stopped. How is she? I asked before I could stop myself. She studied me carefully. She's lighter, she said. Still sad, but lighter. That word hit harder than anger ever could. Lighter, without me. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and cried. Not because I wanted her back, but because I finally understood what I had cost her. The weight of loving someone who never fully showed up. I wrote Maya a letter, not to send, not yet. I wrote everything I never said. The apologies without excuses, The truths without defenses, the love without ownership. I folded it and placed it in a drawer. Some things don't belong to the moment you want them. Weeks passed. I slept better. I listened more when people spoke. And for the first time, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't changing to win her back. I was changing because losing her showed me who I didn't want to be anymore. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. Her name appeared on the screen. My breath caught. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time, fear and hope wrestling in my chest. Because now I knew loving her again would mean loving differently. And I didn't know if I was ready, but for the first time, I wanted to be. I didn't reply right away. Not because I didn't want to talk to her, but because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing for the right reasons. The old version of Muldev answered instantly, desperate to reclaim what I lost. This time, I paused. I breathed, then I typed, "Yes, whenever you're ready." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. "Tomorrow?" My chest tightened. Tomorrow works. I barely slept that night. Not from excitement, from responsibility. Because love, I was learning, wasn't just a feeling. It was showing up prepared. We met at a small cafe across town. Not our cafe. A neutral place. She arrived first. When I walked in and saw her, my breath caught in my throat. She looked the same, and completely different. Her shoulders were lighter, her eyes clearer. She smiled politely, not warmly, and that hurt more than anger ever could. "Hi," I said. "Hi," she replied. We sat. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. "I'm not here to get back together," she said finally. I nodded. "I figured, and I'm not here to hear apologies." "I know." She studied me carefully. "Then why are we here?" I swallowed. "Because I owe you the truth," she said. "And because you deserve to say everything you didn't get to say." Her expression softened slightly. She spoke first, about how lonely she felt even when I was right beside her, about how she begged without words, about how she slowly disappeared trying to keep us alive. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I listened, for once fully. When she finished, her hands were shaking. I spoke carefully. "I didn't know how to love the way you needed," I said. "But I'm learning now." She looked away. "Too late," she whispered. I nodded. "I know," I said, and for the first time I truly meant it. We talked for hours, about growth, about fear, about how sometimes love arrives before maturity, and how timing can break even the best intentions. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "You seem different," she said quietly. "I am," I replied, "but not because you left." She raised an eyebrow. "Because I finally stayed," I said, "with myself." She smiled then. "A real one." As we parted ways, she touched my arm briefly. A familiar gesture, but this time, it didn't promise anything. And that was okay. I walked home feeling something strange. Not loss, not hope. Peace. Because whether she returned to my life or not, I had finally learned how to love without needing someone to teach me. But as I reached my door, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "I'm proud of you." I closed my eyes. Some endings aren't really endings at all. Her message stayed with me longer than I expected. "I'm proud of you." Not "I miss you." Not "I want to try again." Just pride. Once that would have crushed me. Now it grounded me. Life didn't suddenly turn poetic after that conversation. It became quieter, more intentional. I stopped measuring my days by whether she reached out. I stopped hoping for signs. I stopped rehearsing versions of us that no longer existed. And in that space, something new began to grow. I learned how to be present with people, not halfway listening, not waiting for my turn to speak, but actually hearing them. I noticed how rare that was, and how much it mattered. I dated, carefully, not to replace her, but to practice honesty. I told people where I was emotionally. I didn't promise what I couldn't give. I didn't stay where I felt disconnected. It felt strange at first. but also freeing. One evening, Maya called. No warning, no context. Just her name lighting up my screen. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I just wanted to tell you. I see the difference, she said, not in how you talk, in how you pause. I smiled faintly. I'm still learning, I said. Aren't we all? There was no tension in her voice, no longing, just warmth. And I realized something important. Love doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means respect. Months passed. Seasons changed, and one afternoon, while packing away old things, I found the letter he'd written her, the one I never sent. I read it once more, then I tore it up, not out of bitterness, out of closure. That night, I sat alone on my balcony watching the city lights. I thought about how love had once felt like something to hold on tightly. Now it felt like something you give freely or not at all. My phone buzzed. A message from Maya. I'm moving next month. I stared at the words. Far? I asked. Across the country. I exhaled slowly. I'm happy for you, I typed. And I meant it. She replied with a heart. Not romantic. Grateful. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing her again. I felt like I was releasing her. And somehow, that felt like love too. But as I went to bed that night, one thought lingered. If we met again in another time, as better versions of ourselves, would we choose each other differently? The day she moved, I didn't say goodbye. Not because I didn't care, but because some goodbyes don't need witnesses. I wished her well in my own way, quietly. Honestly, the way I wished I had loved her from the beginning. Life continued, not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily, and for the first time I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to beg in. I was already living. I carried the lessons she left me with, not as regret, as guidance. I learned how to speak when something mattered, how to listen without preparing my defense. I learned that love doesn't beg, it chooses. One evening, months later, I ran into someone new. Not a replacement, not a distraction, just someone. We talked easily. There was no rush, no performance. And when she asked about my past, I didn't rewrite it. I told the truth. I loved someone once, I said. She taught me how not to lose myself again. She smiled. That sounds like a good teacher. It was, I replied. Sometimes I still thought about Maya. Not with longing, with gratitude. She didn't save me. She showed me where I needed to save myself. On a quiet night, I reread her original letter one last time. The words I had memorized by heart. I'm leaving because I finally love myself. And I realized something that made me smile. She walked away, so I could finally learn to love. Not just her, but myself. Some love stories don't end with reunion. They end with growth. And sometimes, that's the most beautiful ending of all. Like this story? Comment what you learned and subscribe for more romantic voice stories.